Starting us off in at number 10, Thor. Thor is a superhero who is a literal Asgardian god. The son of Odin, he is noted in the comics as being the physically strongest Asgardian of them all. So how strong is that? Well, he can lift the almost Earth-sized Midgard serpent, he can support the weight of 20 planets, and when combining his efforts with Beta Ray Bill, he destroyed Surtur's solar-powered sized dimensional portal in Thor issue 340 from 1984. That's impressive. He can enter a state called Warrior Madness, which is a berserk mode of sorts that temporarily increases his strength and stamina, although it can make him susceptible to attacking both foe and friend. Thor's invulnerability is impressive as well. He withstood attacks from Celestials in the past. In addition to that, he's got incredibly powerful senses, able to hear cries from across a planet, track objects traveling faster than the speed of light, and he can regenerate wounded parts of his body, often with the help of magic though. Then there's the powers he gains from wielding Mjolnir, dimensional teleportation that allows him to travel between dimensions the likes of our own and Asgard's, electric manipulation, the ability to fly, and weather manipulation. Pretty nifty. Moving on to another character who really likes the weather, in at number 9, Storm. Well, one would assume she really likes the weather, because it's kind of her shtick. Storm is yet another character who has been hailed as a god in the past, and she actually has an ancestry with links to the divine. She has been known to be empowered from people's beliefs and prayers. The more people who believe in her, the more powerful she becomes. When she was first introduced in Giant Size X-Men issue 1, Storm was being praised in Kenya as an actual god, and her Earthlink ability gives her a psychic bond with the primal life force of the Earth's biosphere, which feeds her spiritual and material sustenance and instills her with a great amount of empathy towards every living being. This means she can sense things that others can't. She once sensed that the blackbird was breaking through the atmosphere when she was thousands of miles away. She can sense when natural phenomena are occurring, and she once sensed that a tree on the Xavier Mansion's property was dying. She lands higher up on this list in comparison to others thanks to her recently reconfirmed Omega level mutant status and her atmokinesis abilities. She has the ability to control and manipulate the environment, precipitation, humidity, and moisture at a molecular level. Up next in our number 8 spot, we have Wonder Woman. Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, first appeared in All-Star Comics issue 8 in 1941. One of DC's Holy Trinity, she is an Amazonian demi-goddess with a massive list of abilities that would have any villain shaken in their boots. She has superhuman strength, speed, stamina, durability, endurance, agility, reflexes, dexterity, intelligence, senses, and longevity. She is nigh invulnerable. She has an accelerated healing factor, and Diana is a master of hand-to-hand combat and martial arts. She can fly, she can make use of magic, she is capable of electrokinesis, and perhaps the most obvious reason why she is on this list, she can manipulate divine energy and project it too. Let's not forget that Wonder Woman has an arsenal of tools at her disposal that makes her even more powerful, the likes of her lasso of truth, her indestructible bracelets, and more. Plus, she's also capable of taking on actual gods like Ares, and that speaks volumes. Up next, number 7, Adam Warlock. Warlock was created by a group of scientists called the Enclave. He was the perfect artificial human, who initially referred to himself as him. Simple. Rebelling against his creators, he left Earth and journeyed throughout space, becoming the cosmic hero we are familiar with today. So what can Warlock do? Well, he has superhuman speed, strength, agility, and durability. He can fly, he can manipulate and absorb energy. He is an expert in the field of magic, specifically quantum magic, which he can use to manipulate quantum energy and create force fields, teleport, travel faster than light, produce or detect wormholes, spot out other irregularities in space, and of course, Warlock can manipulate matter. Warlock is also capable of recuperating himself, often creating a cocoon for self-preservation and regeneration. He's immortal, although he can be killed. But he can't technically die because death cannot claim his soul. Moving on to number 6, we have Solar. Solar may be one of the lesser known characters on our list, but oh boy, is he powerful. First appearing in Dr. Solar Man of the Atom issue 1 in 1962, initially published by Gold Key Comics, now by Dynamite Entertainment, he is a fellow who was introduced as a physician named Dr. Philip Solar. He attempted to avert an imminent meltdown of a nuclear power plant upon his first appearance. So Solar absorbed a massive amount of radiation, gaining his powers that would allow him to convert his body into any kind of nuclear energy he desired. The second version of the character had a similar origin story, except now his powers were due to a new type of fusion reactor. Essentially, his body is a living nuclear battery, now being entirely made up of pure energy. He doesn't rely on human food anymore, doesn't have a human metabolism, nor does he have a heartbeat. An innate super genius, the accident turned him into a godlike being. He can manipulate on an atomic and subatomic level. He's invulnerable, he's immortal, and he can manipulate energy in all of its forms, and generate it. converting it into energy blasts and projectiles. Coming in number 5, Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer is arguably one of the more overpowered superheroes in Marvel's roster. Initially the Herald of Galactus who endowed him with the power cosmic, Silver Surfer uses that power cosmic to pull off some pretty impressive moves. These abilities include superhuman strength and durability, flight, traveling at a speed that exceeds the speed of light, manipulating energy and matter, time traveling, telekinesis and telepathy via parsecs of distances. He's intangible, he can turn invisible, can create a star or a black hole, can create pocket universes, cast illusions, phase through things, and of course, he has cosmic senses. All in all, that's a pretty godly skill set to have. Moving on to number 4, we have the Sentry. The Sentry is Robert Reynolds, a man who one day woke up and remembered that he used to be a superhero. As absurd as that sounds, it was the beginning of a story of a hero who had been such a threat to the greater good that he himself had helped wipe the memory of his existence from the minds of everyone all over the globe, including himself. Sentry is like a majorly upgraded Marvel version of Superman. He is capable of molecular manipulation, which all of his powers are based within, which is the basis of all of his powers. It allows him to have complete invulnerability, flight, light and darkness manipulation, superhuman strength, speed, stamina, a regenerative healing factor, enhanced senses, matter manipulation, energy absorption and projection, immortality, reality warping, life creation, empathy and emotion manipulation, death touch, whatever that is, probably touch people and kill them, shapeshifting, mind control resistance, and more. The downside, and the reason why he was wiped from everyone's memories though, he has an evil alter ego within him called the Void, who proved to threaten all of existence with his malevolent ways. Up next at number 3, Molecule Man. Molecule Man, aka Owen Reese, is a Marvel character who first appeared in issue 20 of Fantastic Four in 1963, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. He debuted as a villain, but eventually became a reformed hero. His allegiances weren't the only thing that changed over the years. His powers got a major upgrade too. Initially, he was capable of mentally manipulating molecules, which allowed him to create force fields, energy beams, and hyperspace portals. The upgrade? Well, Reese can now warp reality itself on a multiversal scale. It had been explained as Reese having mental blocks subconsciously imposed upon himself that held back these powers. He is a multiversal composite entity, a single creature that manifests fractions of its entire being in each universe found within the Marvel multiverse. Coming in at number 2, Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards, the son of Sue Storm and Reed Richards, first appeared in Marvel's Pages in Fantastic Four Annual Issue 6 in 1968. And he has a ridiculous amount of power. He can manipulate matter and energy. He can project energy. He has psionic abilities that include telekinesis, telepathy, astral projection, and precognition. He can teleport. He can create a pocket universe, one that can even replicate the entire 616 universe, which he did subconsciously, might I add. And he is immortal. Of course. He's a mutant who can warp reality, considered an Omega level mutant might I add, and even Celestials think his power is on par with themselves. The reason he doesn't rank in the number 1 spot on our list though is because his power limits are still undefined, and he is still very much honing said powers. He is quite young after all. And finally, in at number 1, Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, aka Jonathan Osterman, or at least that's who he was prior, is a being with subatomic perception and control, with an unlimited manipulation of matter and his own body. He is nigh omnipotent. He is entirely invulnerable to all harm, capable of reconstructing his body even when disintegrated in a matter of seconds. He can create life. He is unable to be exhausted, and he is clairvoyant. In the Watchmen universe, not looking at the seemingly ceaseless Doomsday Clock storyline here might I add, Manhattan is the only character who possesses actual superpowers. Human beings in the story literally view him as a god. His perception of time allows him to see his past, present, and future simultaneously. And he is arguably, in the purest sense, the most godlike figure outside of a cosmic entity in modern day comics. Just look at him.
Number 10, Shazam. Technically, every time Billy Batson transforms using the word Shazam, he becomes 6 different gods all rolled into one. He gets his powers from these 6 gods: Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. I put quotations around the word gods because some are not really known as gods based on our own stories of them. Solomon was a king, and Achilles was a war hero. And it's a little weird they went with the Roman version of Hermes, Mercury, but stuck to the Greek god names for the other gods mentioned. Still, in the event of the Darkseid War, it is revealed to Billy that he is actually the god of gods, and that the death of Darkseid has severed his ties to the godly powers within him. So the wizard makes new gods to reside within Batson, where he will get his strength from. Number 9. Storm. Are you truly a god without people to believe in you? When Aurora Moreau returned to her homeland of Kenya, she found herself worshipped for her mutant abilities, believed by local tribes to be a goddess. This not only made her a god in the eyes of others, but she would go on throughout her time with the X-Men to truly prove that she was deserving of the god title. When going up against Doctor Doom in Uncanny X-Men issue 147, she proves just how strong she is when Doctor Doom tortures her by encasing her entire body in chrome, preying on her claustrophobia. This unleashes a power from within Aurora, which her fellow X-Men liken to that of the Phoenix Force in terms of her power levels and her reach. I believe she actually puts the entire world under like a storm, so pretty OP. Number 8. Batman. During the events of the Darkseid War, it seemed like all the supers were getting extra powered, Batman not excluded. He ended up finding himself in possession of Metron's prized Morbius chair. The Morbius chair grants him omniscient knowledge and turns Batman into the god of knowledge. He uses his powers to uncover Joker's secret identity and put a stop to crime before it has even happened, much to Commissioner Gordon's displeasure, as the justice system of Gotham isn't really made to prosecute criminals who have yet to commit a crime. Like, you can't do that. It's just like you have no evidence other than Batman being like, yeah, no, I saw it, it's gonna happen. Number 7. Cyclops. When it was made known that the Phoenix Force was on its way back to Earth, it created a divide between the Avengers and the X-Men. The X-Men believed that the Phoenix Force could be used to fix the world after the events of M-Day. The Avengers believed that the Phoenix Force would only destroy the world. The Phoenix Force was split into 5 by Iron Man and became the Phoenix 5, possessing Namor, Emma Frost, Scott Summers, Magic, and Colossus. Eventually, the power was rejoined as different members of the 5 fell off, losing their power and having it reabsorbed into the others until just Scott was left. Up until the last bit of power entered him, he was actually able to stay on the light side of things, but the full power of the Phoenix Force eventually turned him dark and caused him to kill Professor X. But for a while there, he was quite godlike and quite good. Pretty impressive. Number 6. Superman. Not only Batman got to have fun during the Darkseid War event, no. The more expected hero also got a taste of what it's like to play God. And finally too, I mean, Superman has always been one of those heroes who fans liken to a god, even just at his normal power level. During the Darkseid War, Superman found himself changed while on Apokolips. He was granted an immense amount of strength and became known as the God of Strength. A very different and brutal version of Superman who left Lex Luthor for dead on the planet, threatening that if Lex ever returned to Earth that he would finish the job. And he smashed all his armor. So rude. Lex kinda deserves it. Number 5. Jean Grey. You probably all know where I'm going with this one. We're talking about when Jean gets the Phoenix Force. Becoming the Phoenix and later Dark Phoenix grants Jean access to all kinds of crazy power. Remember when she ate a star and blew up a planet, inciting a war with the Shi'ar on her merry way? Now, the interesting thing is, while there are many others who have found themselves possessed by the Phoenix Force, Jean is special, which also proves just how powerful it makes her. While many characters have died and been resurrected in the comics, Jean even stands out in that regard. Some believe this is due to her connection to the Phoenix Force, which sees Jean as its one true avatar. The Phoenix Force demonstrates its power in every way in which it can save her. It is even willing and capable of punching a hole through space-time to save Jean through displacing her if it has to. Just move her over there for now. Come back to her later. Number 4. The Flash. That's right, we're going back to the Darkseid War. Darkseid was killed by the Flash during this event, who had merged with the Black Racer. As a result, the Flash finds himself feuding with the Black Racer, whom he has possessed, becoming the new God of Death, involuntarily. He tries to defeat Death in his own comic, exploring this transformation. Darkseid War Flash. Here we see him try to actually outrun Death and defeat him by killing the Black Racer, with his own scythe no less. But ultimately, Barry Allen realizes that you cannot fight the inevitable and accepts Death, giving in and merging with the Black Racer and becoming the new God of Death. Number 3. Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff has always kind of had the capacity to act as a god. as her chaos magic abilities allow her to alter and warp reality any way she sees fit. But we didn't really get to see her play God until the events of House of M, where she altered all of reality to make an almost perfect world in terms of hers and others' liking. After her illusion was shattered and her brother was killed, Wanda suffered a psychotic break, which sent her into full-on God mode, and caused her to go one step farther than the previous delusional fantasy world she had previously created. She removed 99% of mutant population's powers with the words "no more mutants." Later on, she would use her power once more to defeat the Phoenix Force. Although Scarlet Witch doesn't often flex these powers, when she does decide to go God mode, she is a force to be reckoned with. She may not be as godlike in the MCU, but she did manage to hold off Thanos, who is basically a god, with a single hand. So, that's something. Maybe one day MCU Scarlet Witch will also be a god. Who knows? Number 2. Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan had become possessed by the fear-feeding parasite Parallax, which caused him to become evil and power-hungry after the destruction of his home, Coast City. He killed a bunch of Green Lanterns during the pursuit of power, venturing to the home base of the Green Lantern Corps and absorbing their power battery. Hal went by the name Parallax and believed all the death would be worth it, as he planned to use his now omnipotent powers to fix the universe. Other superheroes banded together to stop him in the events of Zero Hour, but failed. However, Hal would later attempt to atone for the damage and death he had wrought by sacrificing himself to power Earth's dying sun. He would eventually become a normal human again, but not before he spent some time as the equally omnipotent cosmic hero, the Spectre, where he also had god powers. It's pretty godlike though, the Spectre. Number 1. Mr. Fantastic. As the incursion came to a boiling point, without seeing any way of avoiding the inevitable, Reed Richards gathered together as many heroes as he could and deployed life rafts with them inside, to protect them from the ultimate destruction of both universes as they collided. During the collision, it fell to Dr. Doom to try and save both universes. He became a God Emperor Doom, taking on the power of the Beyonders and creating a patchwork world built from the remnants of both Earth 616 and Earth 1610, called Battleworld. The life rafts from both worlds were discovered by Doctor Strange, who was Doom's second in command, and both versions of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic of Earth 616 and the Maker of Earth 1610, decided to come together to put a stop to Dr. Doom, believing he was not a good choice for a god. After a fair fight against Dr. Doom and his power level reduced to even the odds, it was decided that Richards was the better choice when it came to someone rebuilding the universe. He was given Molecule Man's power, who had been powering Doom previously, and created the Marvelverse that we know today, even showing kindness to Victor Von Doom by fixing his scars and altering his memories so that he believed his nemesis Richards was actually dead. Aw, so nice. But he gets rescarred later, so poor Victor. Number 10. Black Widow. Alright, so granted this is from a what if, so in terms of the main continuity it doesn't really count, but after her apparent death in the MCU, you know I gotta throw my girl Natasha a bone. And besides, I'm always talking about her awful ultimate version on our list lately, so it's redemption time for Natasha. In What If Age of Ultron issue 3, Black Widow became a god after Thor fell. Many supers and dear friends had also fallen at this point, and so it was up to Natasha to try and wield the hammer of Thor. She had to battle her way to Mjolnir, but ended up successful in retrieving it, managing even to be deemed worthy enough to lift it, and transforming her into her own version of the Thunder God. She ended up defeating the great Midgard serpent Jormungand, and while others fell in the battle, we later found out that this version of Natasha from Earth 23223 actually managed to survive despite being thought dead at the end of the comic. Also, this is a cosplay that I need to do, so adding it to my list. Number 9. Captain America. In the events that led to Secret Wars, Black Panther realized another Earth in the sky, which apparently was destroyed. It was later discovered that this was a result of incursions created by a being known as the Great Destroyer, who was causing alternate Earths to collide. In an attempt to save both Earths, the main continuity Earth of 616 and Earth 1610, from colliding with one another, the Illuminati decided to give Captain America the Infinity Gauntlet. Cap, being the kind-hearted soul he is, did not let this power go to his head and could not bring himself to destroy the other Earth. Instead, he used the gauntlet to push the two Earths as far away from one another as he could muster. Unfortunately, this caused the Infinity Stones to shatter, taking Cap back from God mode to plain old super soldier mode in a matter of minutes. Also, it didn't work, so. Number 8. Jane Foster. While Jane Foster was often more resigned originally to being simply a love interest of Thor's, her character has grown immeasurably in the comics. After answering the call of Thor's hammer, she became both a superhero and god instantly. Wielding Thor's hammer seemed to grant her all of Thor's powers and abilities. To me, this kind of felt like a throwback to the days where the hammer seemed to be the source almost of Thor's power, back when he had his alter ego Donald Blake, who now is actually his own being separate from Thor. Figure that. But becoming the goddess of thunder was not actually the only time that Jane became godlike. Odin also once tested her by turning her into an Asgardian and giving her powers, though he quickly took this away from her after declaring she had failed the test due to the fact that she was confused as to, why she had powers and what's going on Asgard. Odin can be such a jerk. And then there was that time that Thor's other love, Sif, merged with Jane to save her life when she was deathly ill. So, she's been a god a few times. Number 7. Wolverine. Wolverine is actually one of the best people to give godlike powers to. I know, surprising. Because he is often quick to use them and then just lose them. When he found himself possessed by the Phoenix Force during a team up with Spidey, where they were both stuck being tossed about through time, he ended up actually being able to eventually kick the entity out of him. And then there is the time in Uncanny X-Men Annual Issue 11, where he accidentally bled onto the psychedelic crystal of ultimate vision as he was dying. This crystal gave him the power to be resurrected from just a single drop of blood that had touched it, and allowed him to single-handedly defeat the villain Horde, transforming him into a god. But Wolverine, being Wolverine, could not be seduced by the power and decided to give it up by shattering the crystal, even if it meant that he might be destroyed in the process. Luckily, he wasn't destroyed. Neither were any of the X-Men that he was like, they might be destroyed, but worth it. Number 6. Spider-Man. I know you guys have all been waiting for this one, because of our last thumbnail on the previous video. During the run of the original Spider-Man series, Amazing Spider-Man, Peter found himself endowed with the power of Captain Universe. Although he would end up losing the godlike powers granted to him by the Enigma Force, there is another version of Peter on Earth 13 who decided to hold on to these powers, and yet another alternate who received the powers of Captain Universe on Earth 91110. On Earth 13, this God mode alternate met his end after facing off with Solus of the Inheritors. Despite being a god, his powers were attached to the life force, which energy vampires like the Inheritors feed off of. Solus, being as powerful as he was, managed to have a hearty enough appetite and be strong enough to devour the Enigma Force, killing Earth 13's Peter Parker. Sad. No more cosmic Spider-Man. Bye! Number 5. Spawn. Spawn discovers that Armageddon is nigh, and that his ex-wife's children, Katie and Jake, are actually Satan and God respectively, incarnate. There is a being known to be even above them though, their mother, who actually gifted Satan and God with the earth to arrange as they saw fit. Basically, Satan and God are kind of just like cosmic children. However, their mother was disappointed and decided to put them inside the bodies of humans so they would hopefully learn something and just get along for once. This however failed, and they continued to wage war on one another. Spawn discovers that he may be the only one who can stop them, and sets out to prove himself worthy and eat some of the forbidden fruit, which will give him the strength that he needs. Presumably. He falls in battle after facing Judas, and the mother reveals that he has succeeded in the test and was meant to die in order to be resurrected, a la Jesus. Because apparently she was Jesus. At one point. Anyways. She gives him the fruit, which grants him the powers of the mother, turning him into a god. He ends up using the power to defeat both Satan and God, and recreate the earth. Kind of ultimate god mode. Number 4. Superman Prime. Superman Prime comes to us from the DC 1 Million series. This version of Kal-El ends up leaving Earth around the 21st century after everyone he loved has died. You'd think being an immortal being he would have just tried, make some new friends as his old ones were dying. But I guess he decided to not do that and just be a really lonely guy. He ends up leaving Earth to have fun space adventures where he is rumored to have traveled beyond time and space. How does one even do that? How do you travel beyond time and space? Does that make sense? I don't know. Only Kal-El could manage it after about 680 centuries away. That's right, he was gone for 680 centuries. It's a long amount of time. He returns and kind of makes a power cult with his descendants, bestowing them with powers he gained in his travels, so long as they promise to use them for good. Then he returns to his Fortress of Solitude inside the sun. Pop popping back out to help deal with Solaris, an evil, artificial sun who Green Lantern began to destroy by causing it to begin to supernova. Superman Prime steps in and simply just squashes the threat of Solaris. He also would later use his power and some DNA, which he retrieved from inside Solaris, to resurrect Lois Lane, who then became Silver. Silver and gold, silver and gold. Number 3. Adam Warlock. When the MCU turned to the comic book arc of the Infinity Gauntlet, we all thought for sure we'd be getting Adam Warlock, right? Whose existence in the MCU was teased at during one of the post-credit scenes for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Why? Well, because Adam Warlock understands these stones on a whole other level, and he was actually the one to wield the glove in the original story and put an end to the chaos, not Iron Man. Sorry Stark fans, sorry about that. Beyond that, in an alternate reality, Warlock also became the new living tribunal, transforming him into a god that stands for justice on a universal scale. Basically, if you're a cosmic superhero, you're definitely gonna have some godlike abilities at some point. Number 2. Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is probably one of the strongest mutants on the planet. He is the son of Sue Storm and Reed Richards, and I feel like constantly steals the limelight from his sister Valeria when it comes to how OP he is considered within the comics. Well, I'm sure he didn't instantly have powers when he was born, as most mutants do not actually seem to gain their powers until they hit puberty. He definitely was an early developer. This is a child who had to have his mind shut down as a baby by his dad, Mr. Fantastic, as apparently Franklin was revealed to be already too strong and dangerous when he was kidnapped and put in a device that would, granted, unlock the full potential of his psionic abilities. So, okay, maybe sure, but still, he was a baby. Franklin as a young boy also created a pocket universe after Onslaught killed his parents, which he kept inside a blue rubber ball, effectively saving his mom and dad and everyone else Onslaught had killed. Oh, and he and Galactus also end up becoming BFFs. Godlike beings gotta stick together, right? Know you're like a god if you're friends with Galactus, that's what I think. Number 1. Dr. Manhattan. John was sort of already granted godlike abilities as soon as he became the victim of an accident involving a radioactive particle test. It would take him a while, of course, to reform and come to this conclusion. But although this story is therefore more about John Osterman becoming a god, Dr. Manhattan really wasn't fully aware of how godlike his mind was becoming initially. As time progressed, he experienced a detachment to life that he eventually realized kept him separate and allowed him to see himself as being above humanity. The way he was able to view time and the value he put on human life eventually made him not only godlike in ability, but also in his viewpoint. Though he did end up rediscovering the miracle of life when he allowed the Silk Spectre, his former partner Lori, to view the world as he did, and they both discovered that the comedian was actually her father. He was like, wow, that's so amazing. Actually, human life's pretty cool. It's like a miracle. How did your mom and the comedian hook up? That's terrible.
Number 10. Thor. Thor at number 10, you say? Blasphemy. Well, no, not really. Everybody, or most everyone, knows about Thor, the god of thunder, or the herald of thunder in Donny Cates' run at least at the start of it. Thor is modeled off of the Norse god of the same name. He was cast out of Asgard, one of the 9 realms, after his father found him to be too arrogant and a disappointment as an heir. Initially, he was sharing the body of a mortal man named Donald Blake, and Donald Blake was not aware of this. Not only was that horrifying, but it was also confusing, so it was soon retconned to the fact that he was Donald Blake, unless he held the hammer of Thor, and then when he put it down, he forgot, which was still kind of convoluted, but it worked. Nowadays, Thor's secret identity days are long behind him, and now he is all Thor all the time. His status as a god doesn't actually seem to awe the people around him as much as it should. I guess they just got used to it, with him being an Avenger and all. He's just everywhere. They've been there and seen that. Number 9. Hercules. Hercules is a fairly prominent member of the Marvel Universe as well, but he doesn't get the same amount of attention. Definitely not on the same level as Thor. Hercules debuted back in the Silver Age of Marvel, or their Renaissance, because it wasn't even Marvel before the Silver Age. It was Timely, before that was Atlas. Hercules got his start teaming up with Thor as his rival and eventually as his friend, but also still as his rival, like an anime. For some reason, the Grecian angle didn't really take as well as the Norse one. And while Hercules has his fans, he's certainly not as well known as some of the other characters out there. Although the importance of Simonson's run on Thor and how that defined him cannot be understated here. If you get a writer like, say, how Chris Claremont revolutionized the X-Men, you can suddenly get a whole new placement within the comic book universe. Number 8. Wonder Girl. Cassandra Sandsmark. Yes, if you're a demigod, you get to be on this list too. While Marvel's Hercules enjoys full godhood status, Zeus over in the DC universe is still doing what he loves, seducing mortal ladies, though hopefully he's not doing it in the form of a swan anymore. Creepy. Cassandra is the daughter of Zeus and an archaeologist named Dr. Helena Sandsmark, who is also a friend of Diana, aka Wonder Woman. So at first they play it off like Diana is giving Cassie items that grant her powers and is taking her under her wing, before it is later revealed that no, she is actually a daughter of Zeus. At least this was before the New 52, then she was Zeus's granddaughter. Why? Cause why not? Retcon all the things. But hey, in Rebirth, Zeus refers to her as the future of the pantheon of the gods, so that's something. High praise, or high pressure. You decide. Number 7, Storm. Now Storm is interesting on this list for the fact that she isn't actually a god, but her people thought she was. When her amazing mutant abilities manifested, that being the ability to control the weather, it appeared to the people of her village that she was a goddess. She could stop droughts, create plenty, and turn the tides in their favor. It's an understandable assumption, to be honest. Still, Xavier came and burst that bubble hard, and then took her away to harness her powers to a greater degree, and also in a more targeted manner. Though she was doing pretty well figuring it out on her own, to be honest. Practice makes perfect, and compared to an average mere mortal, her powers do seem pretty godlike. Number 6, Snowbird. Snowbird first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 120 back in 1979, and was actually a fan character for writer John Byrne, her creator. He was just waiting for a chance, essentially, an opportunity to write her, and with Alpha Flight, he got it. Snowbird is again a demigod, this time with a human father and a goddess mother, Nelvina, an Inuit goddess of the north. This wasn't exactly a romance though. Like her father's experiences in the spirit realm drove him insane. It was much more of a you produce offspring now. Narya was bound by a shaman to the earth realm where he attempted to raise her and give her some semblance of normalcy. But she grew rapidly and soon developed powers. Lots and lots of powers, such as being able to transform into any animal, well any natively Canadian animal, so you know, caveats. She would end up on the Canadian superhero team Alpha Flight, but it was a pretty big conflict since she had been born to battle the forces of the tundra, so she had to kind of divide her attentions and eventually gave up her secret identity. Snowbird has many abilities aside from metamorphosis, and that includes healing. Again, people here know her origins, but they're pretty meh about it. She was born in the spirit realm. That's worth at least a conversation over coffee. Number 5, Orion. Orion is a member of Jack Kirby's New Gods universe. He is the son of Darkseid, traded with the High Father as a bid for peace between Apocalypse and New Genesis. Orion grew up in the paradise that was New Genesis, and was taught to focus his inherent anger, and he came to really appreciate the upbringing he had been given. However, his ancestry led him towards being their planet's most skilled warrior. He was aggressive and more ready for a fight than the other residents of New Genesis. Orion has been a member of the Justice League and helped them deal with Darkseid, his father. The new gods get their godhood more from their names than anything else. They are slightly more powerful than most mortal humans, but they are also still below some of the Earth's forces. Darkseid is pretty terrifying though, and just the application of the Judeo-Christian Darkseid is when referring to him, that's some hardcore blasphemy right there. Number 4, Mr. Miracle. So since we're talking about this trade, let's look at the other half. While Orion got to live an idyllic childhood on New Genesis, the child the High Father gave to Darkseid, not so much. No, instead he gave that child to the cruel Granny Goodness, in an attempt to break his spirit and to prove to the High Father that his way was best and inescapable. In a joke to amuse herself, the child was named Scot-Free, and would spend his childhood trying to escape Apocalypse, using increasingly cleverer and cleverer methods. Scott was unaware of his heritage and yet still had an inherent bend towards freedom that led him to join the resistance against Darkseid, because he did eventually escape. Take that. Scot-free. He would end up on Earth eventually and love it there, especially the stable pace of life and lack of surprise torture at every corner. Number 3, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is usually the Sorcerer Supreme, but sometimes to shake up the status quo, that changes. And what we have instead is a powerless Stephen Strange, but he rarely stays that way for long. Case in point, when Loki became the Sorcerer Supreme. Doctor Strange could not just let that stand, so he had to set out to find a way to be stronger, better, faster. So since Loki stole his cloak, Doctor Strange broke into Asgard and made a bargain with the World Tree. Yggdrasil. Hard to say. World Tree. The amount of magic that this Tree of Life granted him was so great, it turned him into a living god of magic. But since he really just wanted his life back, he was able to give up that godhood for his title, regular powers, and of course, his cloak. Number 2, Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan is transformed into the Watchmen universe's only superpowered being. This transformation is due to a tragic accident that results in his body being completely obliterated, disintegrated. But John Osterman came back. He came back changed though. He rebuilt himself molecule by molecule. He is no longer a man in the traditional sense, but a being of energy, a god. He exists now outside of time, or rather in all time periods simultaneously. Because of this, he began to get more and more disconnected from life and other people. He would eventually leave his universe to create one of his own. This would later be retconned to it being in the DCU, or at least the New 52. There are many feelings about this. Mine are salty, but what are yours? I mean, I'm not as salty as the authors of the 3 Jokers who had to wait over an extra year to publish their comic because it had to wait till after this Watchmen DC crossover before it could come out, and there were art delays. Many art delays. Yikes. And in at number 1, we have God Doom. During the Secret Wars event of the 2010s, not of the 80s, the Marvel Universe essentially collapsed, and it was remade by one man, keeping it all together, a world of merges and warps. And in this universe, he also stole Reed's family. This man was Doom, or God Doom as he was known in this arc. Doom stole the Beyonder's power in order to save all creation, so he was being good at the time. This is why he gets to be on a superhero list. Doom does what he wants when he wants though. Doom was the god of this world, but ultimately he is still Doom. So Reed and his evil alternate the Maker managed to find a way to approach him and restore the universe. What this really was a way to wrap up the 1610 universe, aka the Ultimate Universe, which had at this point run its course. That universe started in 2000 and ended in 2015. Basically, they wanted to save the characters that they liked and shut down the rest, but in a way that if for some reason they needed to have them back in the future, they could. Basically, have your cake and eat it too. We want Miles Morales and the Maker, and that's pretty much it.
In at number 10, Bast. Also known as the Panther God, Bast is the child of Ra, and first appeared in Fantastic Four issue 52 in 1966, but solely as a totem. It is the deity that the Black Panthers of Wakanda get their powers from, after proving themselves worthy of the mantle through trials, gaining the privilege of using the heart-shaped herb. A Wakandan legend states that when the 5 tribes fought for control of the nation, a warrior shaman received the vision from Bast that led him to the heart-shaped herb, and to the responsibility of becoming king of Wakanda and the very first Black Panther. In addition to this, whenever someone passes away, in the afterlife they are brought by Bast and Sekhmet to a mystical green valley in which they can run freely in peace for all of eternity. And at number 9, Kronos. Kronos was initially one of the Eternals of Earth, but due to an explosion from an experiment gone haywire, he lost his physical form, and was left being an abstract energy form. Silver lining though was that this gave him immortality and cosmic powers. In Kronos' first appearance, he took the soul of Arthur Douglas, a victim of Thanos', and transformed him into Drax the Destroyer in order to take on the Mad Titan, who was also his own grandson. Kronos was one of the many cosmic entities who fought alongside Adam Warlock in the Infinity Gauntlet series, in an attempt to stop Thanos from wielding the Infinity Gems. Up next at 8 is Hela. Hela is based on the Norse goddess Hel, and is a constant antagonist of Thor's. The character first appeared in Journey into Mystery issue 102, and was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. She's the daughter of a different incarnation of Loki, who had died during a previous Asgardian Ragnarok. Odin appointed her as the goddess of the dead, and she would often butt heads with him and Thor over her attempts to expand her power to the dead who dwell in Valhalla. Speaking of, next up at number 7 is Thor. Perhaps the most beloved god on this list, Thor is based off of the Thor of Norse mythology. In the comics, he's the Asgardian god of thunder, who first debuted in Journey into Mystery issue 83 back in 1962. Prior to this, another version of the character had appeared in Venus issues 12 and 13 back in 1951. Created by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and Jack Kirby, the aim was to craft a character who was stronger than the strongest person. As Lee stated back in 1992, I quote, "It finally came to me. Don't make him human, make him a god." Kirby had initially drafted up a version of a Thor character for DC back in the 50s, but the one that he did for Marvel in the 60s really stuck. Enamored by legends, he wanted to take the Norse Thor legends of the real world and give them a modernist twist. Up next, number 6, Odin. Speaking of Thor, let's take a look at his father, Odin. Also based off of the Odin of Norse mythology, Odin is an incredibly powerful Asgardian, and can tap into the Odin Force, an ancient and vast Asgardian power which includes energy projection, creating illusions and force fields, levitation, telepathic communication with other Asgardians, molecular manipulation, hypnotism towards humans, control of Asgardian life forces, teleportation, and the channeling of lightning. Yeah, so dude can do a lot. Up next at 5, Eternity. Eternity is a wickedly cool abstract entity. Essentially every universe in the multiverse manifests itself as an anthropomorphic being known as Eternity. Eternity embodies Earth 616 reality, along with his sister Infinity. First appearing in 1965's Strange Tales 138, Eternity was the collective consciousness of all life, and was dependent upon it. Nowadays, Eternity rarely manifests himself, but when he does, it's because of an imminent threat to the universe, like when Thanos collected all of the Infinity Gems and imprisoned Eternity, proving that the entity isn't entirely omnipotent. That being said, Thanos ranked Eternity as standing above all other abstract entities. Hey, at least that's something to be proud of. And at number 4, Gaia. Gaia, an elder god, first appeared in Doctor Strange Volume 2, Issue 6 back in 1975, but under a different name, Mother Nature. A few months later, that name was changed to Gaia in Issue 4 of Giant-Sized Avengers. She possesses mystical powers of an unidentified unidentified nature, and appeared on Earth long before any life did. Her creation is due to the sentient biosphere known as the Demiurge, who made her at the dawn of life on Earth. Concerned with nature and evolution, Gaia has merged with Earth itself, although she often takes a humanoid form. She's also the mother of many other gods, and is often referred to as the Mother Goddess, birthing the likes of Thor after she and Odin mated. Gaia also has an interesting connection to our next number, in at 3, Set. Debuting in Marvel Future Volume 2 Issue 6, Set is also an elder god, but of a much more contemptuous nature than Gaia. While Gaia was concerned with life and geology flourishing, Set realized that if he devoured his fellow elder gods, he could add their power to his own, which has made Set technically the very first murderer according to Marvel. Other gods began to follow his ways, causing them to become corrupt and turn into demons. Set has a bond with reptiles, and often takes a reptile form. He even brought upon the emergence of the Serpent Men, although that race didn't last overly long compared to humanity. Up next at 2, Death. Death is one of the entities in the Marvel Universe who has had a major impact on the events of Earth and its heroes. This is primarily due to Thanos, and his infatuation with the character. His quest for the Infinity Gems and Omnipotence was to prove himself worthy for Death, and to carry out her wishes of correcting the imbalance of living to dead beings in the universe. She's also the hots for Deadpool, which is pretty great. Aside from her history with Earth, Death is the embodiment of decay and destruction, and was born along with the universe itself. She has no true form, but often manifests as a hooded human skeleton, and she lives in the realm of death, a place inaccessible to the living. She first appeared in Captain Marvel issue 26 back in 1973. And last but not least, in at number 1, Galactus. Despite not being the most powerful entity on this list, Galactus is arguably the most prominent. The first minus the Asgardians to come to mind when you think of Marvel and gods. In 1966, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby collaborated on a new antagonist to add to their incredibly successful flagship title, Fantastic Four. The idea was to craft a character that broke out of the current supervillain mold. According to Lee in an interview back in 1993, I quote, "Having dreamed up many powerful baddies, we felt the only way to top ourselves was to come up with an evildoer who had almost godlike powers. Therefore, the natural choice was some sort of demigod." And what about Kirby? Well, he dived into biblical inspirations for the character's design, describing Galactus and his angelic herald Silver Surfer as mythical figures, and noted that they were the first gods. Perhaps the most famous of the Marvel gods, Galactus was initially an explorer known as Galen of Ta, who existed prior to the Big Bang. When the Big Crunch occurred, he was bonded with Eternity, where he changed and gestated for 1 billion years before emerging. In order to sustain himself, he must devour planets for energy. This is when he created the Silver Surfer as a herald to find planets for him to devour, and how the character came upon Earth.
Number 10. Wonder Woman. Diana Prince, the daughter of Zeus. Okay, so before I start, I just want to say that Wonder Woman is not always overpowered. Sometimes she's way too depowered, but usually she's right perfect where she needs to be. But there are some instances where they make her way too powerful, just kind of like any other hero. Usually Wonder Woman isn't bulletproof, and that's why she blocks away bullets with her gauntlets. But there are times where they have made her completely bulletproof, or insanely fast, like almost speedster level fast, where she can move faster than speeding bullets, which is a bit crazy. Wonder Woman is one of the most powerful and coolest DC heroes, and this happens with every character, sometimes writers make heroes, or in this case gods, just way too powerful. Number 9, Morpheus. Morpheus, also known as the God of Dreams. For the most part, he kind of just does his own thing, and hasn't really shown up a ton in the main DC continuity, but he has gradually shown up more and more over the years. He is very powerful, and he lives in a world of dreams, where he can essentially do whatever he chooses, because the dream world is his domain. So if someone were to fight him there, they would most likely not fare so well. For the most part, he's considered a good guy, but a better description would probably be anti-hero, since he does kind of just show his bad side every once in a while. Number 8, Trigon. Good old Trigon. If you're a fan of Teen Titans, then you are well aware of who this guy is. He's the father of one of the founding members of the Teen Titans, Raven. Trigon is a villain that just seems to always come back, and that's probably because he is so freaking powerful. He can travel through dimensions, fly, has super strength, invulnerability, molecular reconstruction, mind control, telekinesis, telepathy, and pyrokinesis. I mean, the guy is stacked with powers. Maybe even has too many. It's a miracle that the Titans have been able to take him down at all. And he is so obsessed with making his daughter join him on the dark side. But luckily, he hasn't been fully successful on that dream yet. Number 7, Ra. Ra is not a god that all humans would know. Some do, but not all. That's because he's not one of Earth's gods. He is one of Krypton's. If you're wondering why that name sounds familiar, it's also because that is what the red sun of Krypton is named after. Also, Rao has been brought up multiple times over the years in the TV show Supergirl. I mean, in the show, humans even started their own church to worship him, because over time, humans began to learn more about him thanks to Superman and Supergirl. Usually that was only strictly on Supergirl's Earth 38, but after Crisis and the Earth merged, now there have actually been some very subtle references on the Flash that humans on now the main Earth know who Rao is, which is also just a really cool touch. But Rao is very powerful, and also kind of crazy. I mean, there are different stories about him, some still in continuity, some not. I mean, that is the comic book world for you. But at one point, he tried to become immortal and started taking life from people who followed him. It's also been stated that he created Krypton, but other stories have said otherwise. Number 6, Athena. Athena is one of the Olympians. She is the goddess of wisdom and defensive war. Her powers include de-accelerated aging. Basically, she doesn't age at the same rate as humans. She also has super strength, stamina, telepathy, invulnerability, and magic. Not only does that make her insanely powerful already, but she also has other abilities like weaponry and martial arts, which makes her extremely deadly if you were to face off with her in the battlefield. Similar to the other Olympians, in some iterations, the Olympians only hold on to these powers as long as people still worship them. Number 5, Zeus. Zeus has the power of lightning. That's not a shocker. No pun intended. Okay, actually no, that was totally intended. But this power is super strong and allows him, in a sense, to control the weather. In some variations of the comics, he needs people to worship him, like I stated earlier, to gain or hold how powerful he actually is. If people stop, then Zeus, his power would fade over time. Zeus can not only control the weather, but he can also resurrect people from the dead. He also has the ability to shapeshift and create life. Yes, he is the father of Wonder Woman, so that fits. Number 4, Ares. Ares, yet another Olympian on this list. He is the god of war. So, this guy doesn't want peace. Right off the bat, it tells you that. His powers include teleportation, darkness manipulation, dimensional travel, magic, size alteration, super speed and super strength, telepathy, and mind control. Yeah, he has quite a few. Probably a little bit too much, but he also has great skills that include weaponry and martial arts. And if you're thinking, I wonder why he looks so familiar or sounds familiar. Well, you're not wrong. If you saw the 2017 film Wonder Woman, he was the main villain of that movie, and he fought Wonder Woman at the end of the film. Although he was unsuccessful, he still proved himself to be a formidable foe. And surprisingly, once he turned into his true form, he looked pretty comics accurate. Number 3, Lucifer. So, Lucifer is a fallen angel who basically led a rebellion against the presence, and well, he lost. He's quite powerful, and can shape matter, energy, and time. He has the ability of super strength, acidic blood, he can fly, let out a sonic cry, speak to animals, and even telepathy. Yeah, this guy is loaded with powers. However, in the New 52 reboot, they sort of made Lucifer a little less overpowered, relying more on his armies rather than his powers itself. But nonetheless, he's still pretty friggin' powerful. At number 2, we have Darkseid. Darkseid is one of the biggest foes in the DC universe. He has gone up against the Justice League, that right away tells you how strong he is. He's not only powerful with his fists, but powerful with his Omega beams that shoot straight out from his eyeballs. The cool thing with these Omega beams is that he can control them in any direction. Yeah, not even Superman can do that with his heat vision. These beams are not only incredibly deadly, so if you get hit by one, you're most likely screwed, but they are also incredibly fast. And in the past, have even been known to catch up to certain speedsters, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Number 1, the Presence. Yeah, this is not really a shocker. So if you don't know, the Presence is basically DC's versions of God, like the main god. The Presence is insanely powerful. Some say the most powerful thing in the entire DC universe. It can do anything. I mean, its powers are limitless. It gave the Spectre his powers, which, as you know, the Spectre is considered to be one of the most powerful beings as well. So, I mean, that makes sense once you realize where his powers actually came from. Similar to Spectre, if the Presence takes a human form, the human can die, but the Presence will live on. It can grant powers, resurrect anyone it chooses, and keep going into any host it chooses. If there was a DC, kind of totem pole of the most powerful to the least, the Presence sits alone at the very, very top.
And at 10, Hulk. Okay, we all know the Hulk, and we all love him. So much so that even suggesting that MCU Captain Marvel can beat MCU Hulk apparently deserves 2 years of hate, even if it was my second video. Thanks, Sasha. However, the Hulk has defeated a god, which is no easy feat. In the first Avengers Avengers movie, which is the time I'll be referring to, hence why it's at the top, because you're gonna be mad at me, Hulk beat Loki down so hard that even years later, come Thor Ragnarok, Loki was still scared of him, which is pretty damn awesome. You know the scene. It's iconic. Hulk picks up Loki, then smashes him around a million different ways. Actually, it's just one, by smashing him on the ground over and over again, but it's still hilarious and one of the best scenes in the entire MCU. Hulk beating down Loki is such an iconic moment now, and even before this, he punched Thor in the face and knocked him across the room, so it's safe to say that Hulk deserves to be on this list, even if it's the MCU version that I got hate for mentioning before. And at 9, Batman. Now, while this isn't an instance of Batman beating an actual god, someone who, I guess in our religions is considered a god, rather he beat a god that is considered a god, or at the very least god adjacent in his universe, Darkseid. During the Final Crisis storyline from 2008, Batman uses a Radion bullet to mortally wound Darkseid, while Darkseid in turn kills Batman with his Omega beams. Although physically bested and appearing dead, Darkseid's dying essence was still dragging all of reality into nothingness along with it. So even though Batman broke his one rule and created a bullet that could literally kill a god, it wasn't really enough. And then Batman gets gotten by the Omega Beam, and Superman is left at the end of creation and has to literally sing Darkseid apart. Not even kidding. The last of Superman's super breath was used to sing the remaining essence of Darkseid out of existence. I wish I wasn't being serious. This sounds like either the best or the worst episode of Glee ever. It's the only episode that I would watch, if I'm being totally honest. And at 8, Black Bolt. Speaking of voices tearing people apart, we have Black Bolt, the Dragonborn of the Marvel Universe. Another character who didn't exactly defeat a god that we know of, but rather a god that is considered a god in his universe. They say that when Black Bolt came face to face with Apocalypse, he murdered the god with his voice, shouted him apart. Actually, a simple sound was enough to do the man in. Black Bolt has also killed nearly all the Celestials and torn apart space-time with those damn pipes of his. Guess there's more to this tuning fork of a human than meets the eye, or I guess I should say inhuman. I'd never want to get on this guy's bad side, especially like even if we just got into an argument. That would probably be the death of me. Like he would say something extremely controversial and I'd just be like, yeah man, totally. Yeah, just so I don't have to fight him. Or maybe I should say the death of me. No? Too much? Because like, you know, he'd explode my head with sound. So it would be the death of me, but I would also... Okay, moving on. And at 7, Aquaman. With Aquaman being the butt of so many superhero jokes, you wouldn't really expect him to have that many big bad tangles. Maybe a cuttlefish here, or maybe a blobfish is acting out of line there, but that sort of underestimating is actually what got the son of Poseidon's handed to him by the flying fishmonger. Going by the name of Triton, not Percy Jackson unfortunately, the son of Olympic god Poseidon challenged Aquaman to a one-on-one battle. He didn't expect much of a fight, I guess, which just makes me question why he challenged him in the first place. But Triton, due to his arrogance, got his rear presented to him on a silver platter with a side of cheese slices and crackers to boot. In fact, Triton got his beat so bad that Poseidon himself stepped in to save him and then punished Aquaman for absolutely destroying his pathetic little boy. Like, this is some serious rich parent level of bull here. Like, imagine you're on a sports team and you beat the other team so bad that one of the parents comes in and yells at you and then kicks you off your team. That's basically what happened to Aquaman, and that's hilarious. That's not gonna help with the jokes. And at 6, Thor. I know that Thor is a god, but that doesn't mean that I can't count him on this list because he's still a superhero in the Marvel comics. So you know what? It's good enough for me, and for some reason Marvel agrees with me, putting him up against various foes like Olympus cage matches for us to bet on. One that we've seen multiple times, and I mean multiple times, is Thor versus Hercules.
In the blue corner, we have the god of lightning, the lord of thunder, the son of Odin, and the mother of dragons, Thor! And in the red corner, we have the god of strength, son of Zeus, and probably not Hera's son, hence why she sent demons after him, at least in the non-Disney adaptation, whose name is also wrong, Hercules! That, for some reason, despite being the god of strength, cannot seem to win against Thor when he uses lightning. Yeah, that's right. Somehow the god of strength and the god of thunder are fairly evenly matched physically, but when Thor starts pulling out some lightning on the son of Zeus, whose father literally wields a lightning bolt, he can't seem to get it up. You know what I really want to see? Thor versus Bonesaw. Bonesaw is ready! Halfway through into number 5, Spectre. Look,
I get that the Spectre is an immortal mythical presence that doesn't really have any decent weakness, however, he does possess a mortal man in order to actually be able to do his thing, so he counts for this list. That's right, deal with it. Especially when the spirit of ultimate vengeance fought off Shazam, who is similar to Darkseid and Apocalypse in the sense that he's seen as a god in this universe, or at least god adjacent, since, you know, he's also basically invincible. I guess you could also say that maybe Superman fits that description, but literally anyone who fights him somehow gets their hands on kryptonite as if it's available at every corner drugstore, like plutonium was supposed to be in 1985. If you understand that reference, we can be friends. However, you know, the Spectre is literally a spirit that will just find a new host whenever his old one kicks the bucket, so yeah, it's safe to say that this guy could defeat basically anyone if he tried hard enough, and was willing to burn through enough vessels. In it for Deadpool. Deadpool, for all of his issues, is certainly a resilient fellow, and shares quite a bit of his character with various different other characters in the Marvel Universe. One of which is that he has a fascination for tricks and impersonations, like Loki. Ironically, Mr. Wilson decided to try and impersonate Thor on multiple occasions. And you know, Thor already has to deal with that kind of BS at home, so when he sees Wade doing it, he isn't happy. And while this may have happened in a non-canon comic, technically it happened in one universe. Since in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe Volume 12, Deadpool uses Pym particles to enlarge Mjolnir and use it to kill Thor, which has got to be the most brutal kind of taking your own medicine ever. Like, imagine getting squished by your own hammer that only a couple other people in the entire universe can even move. That's a serious kick in the balls, especially because it's Deadpool. Like, you lost to Deadpool. That sucks. Getting close to the end in number 3, Wonder Woman. Do I really need to tell you which god Wonder Woman has defeated? I mean, like, it's kind of obvious. She also had a whole movie about it. The god of war, Kratos, has gone against wait, what? That's the wrong god of war? Oh yes, right. Wonder Woman and Ares have gone head to head multiple times over the various decades of comics. Ares is basically the Joker to Wonder Woman's Batman, at least in my opinion. And honestly, it's not as fair as one might think. Sure, Ares is the god of war, but Wonder Woman still kicks his ass from here to Sunday. Especially after they got rid of that one weakness that I'm pretty sure spoke more about the writer than the character. No matter what, Wonder Woman has still beat Ares, who is a god of war, and therefore belongs on this list, even if it was a fairly obvious number. She also cleaved his head in two at one point, so it's safe to say that if she wasn't on this list, the same thing would happen to me. Either from her or the comments. Penultimately, in at number 2, Sentry. Sentry's an absolute powerhouse, so it's no surprise that he's fought and beaten a god, but how he did it is even better. Sentry used to be a part of Norman Osborn's Avengers, who went to Asgard in an attempt to lay siege and claim it, because, you know, it's Norman Osborn's Avengers. However, the Marvel version of the Greek god of war didn't like that idea, so after he learned of Osborn's intentions, he came down to kill the Green Goblin. But Ares did not anticipate Sentry's absolute monster arms, even when Sentry picked him up and tore him in half. This man tore a Greek god in half. He absolutely obliterated the god of war without breaking a sweat. If that doesn't show you the sheer power of Sentry and how overpowered Marvel thinks that Superman is, nothing will. Nothing will show you. You're a lost cause at that point. He tore Ares in half. What? Finally, in number 1, Superman. Superman is basically a god in the DC universe, like I said earlier, but not only is he near godlike in the DC universe, but he's also defeated multiple godlike entities across his decades of comic appearances, including Darkseid after withstanding one of his Omega beams, which is absolutely insane, and Doomsday, who, whenever he gets defeated, gets resurrected, and then cannot be killed in that same way. So you'd have to come up with new ways to kill him every time, which is freaking ridiculous, and eventually Doomsday will just become invincible and everyone will die. I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying. Superman is also basically unkillable if the enemy plays fair, but let's be honest, when would they do that? They're bad guys. It's what they do. But assuming the world ends up running out of kryptonite, we're also all screwed. We saw what happened with Injustice. Imagine that, but no chance of stopping him, alright? Yeah. Exactly. Also, how specific is the Doomsday thing? Like, does it have to be like, oh, you stabbed him here, so you have to move 2 millimeters over to the left to actually be able to kill him again? Or is it like, oh, you shot him with like a bazooka, so you can't ever shoot him again? And like, does it happen, like, is it every other time that he's died you can't kill him that same way, or is it just the previous one? I don't know. I probably should have looked it up.
Starting off at number 10, Zeus. First appearing in Superman 28 back in 1944, Zeus is a name many would recognize, not just comic book fans. So Zeus is the father of many, including none other than Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. who I'll get to a bit later on in the list. Zeus is one of the gods of Olympus, so he basically possesses unlimited power. He's kind of a big deal in mythology. Kind of. Which one would only expect being the son of Kronos and Rhea. How powerful is Zeus, you ask? Well, for starters, he can manipulate weather, like the weather. Little less known fact about him is he could also shapeshift, resurrect the dead, and create new life. Zeus was referenced in the 2017 Wonder Woman film, obviously, along with other Olympian gods. We catch a look at him in the Justice League movie, and I would love to see more of this guy. I mean, he uses a lightning bolt to separate the 3 mother boxes in the film. I would love to see more of these things that he can do. Like, it's Zeus. Can we just get an entire trilogy? I'll watch it. If you haven't already seen Justice League, you might as well wait for the Snyder Cut at this point. Number 9, Metron. Making his first appearance in New Gods Godhead issue 1 back in 2014, Metron is also referred to as the owner of the Morbius chair. He created the technology known as boom tubes. He also once survived an attack from Darkseid's daughter, and if you're not aware of who Darkseid is, that's why we have part 1, so go on over and check that out as soon as you're done here. Metron, okay, he's considered one of the most intelligent beings in existence, for good reason. This Morbius chair I mentioned, it's a pretty sweet setup. It allows for Metron to travel between any location and timeline in any universe at any time. Batman once had this chair and he still was concerned about street crimes. Classic Batsy. That is until Owlman came in and ruined the day. Number 8, Highfather. Also known as Isaiah the Inheritor, he made his first appearance in Wonder Woman Volume 4, Issue 14. He's the ruler of New Genesis and is a powerful new god who wants to bring peace to the multiverse. And he's also out to destroy his brother and worst enemy, you guessed it, Darkseid, who again is covered in part 1. Just go check it out. Leave this video, go check it out and come back. No hard feelings. Isaiah lives outside of normal time and space as well, even the New 52 universes. So since he got his powers, he actually doesn't age. So that dude's gonna look fresh forever. He can also feel when something isn't right in the universes, especially when it has something to do with his brother Darkseid. He can also get in your head, like literally. He can mentally link himself to you and eventually cause physical damage. That's how powerful he is. And if that's not scary enough, he can take a regular boring human, like myself, and within seconds turn them into a new god just by thinking about it. He even once obtained the Genesis Scepter, channeling the white light of life, giving him access to the power of the life equation. But he ended up destroying it because he felt too much guilt. Too much power? I mean, maybe. We gotta draw the line somewhere. Number 7, Wonder Woman. The daughter of Zeus herself, I only thought it was fitting to put her in this list. We've seen her in movies deflecting bullets, and we're gonna see her ride lightning whenever Wonder Woman 1984 finally gets released. Wear a mask. But just how strong is Diana Prince? The Queen of the Amazons was living a pretty chill life. That is until Steve Trevor, played by the oh-so-fine Chris Pine, ended up crash landing on the island Themyscira. A tournament was held to decide who was going back to Man's Land with Trevor. So Diana thrived and even completed the final task of deflecting a bullet fired from her own mother. Awarded with the lasso of truth and a badass suit of armor, she was on her way to the top in no time. She was donned the name Wonder Woman by the press after she handled some terrorist. It's been handled, son! Using the bracelets of submission, she can deflect bullets. And as the bracelets are made of the 8th metal, which is a pretty strong metal, the lasso of truth is exactly what you think it is. The gods of Olympus gave it to the Amazons and it was their prized relic for a long time. She can actually blind you with this thing while making you spill your deepest, darkest secrets. So you don't want to bump into Diana Prince anytime soon, believe me. Number 6, Lucifer Morningstar. Making his first appearance in Sandman Volume 2, Issue 4, he's a fallen archangel and he actually used to rule hell at one point. That's right, like hell, you know. He was cast out for rebelling against the kingdom of heaven, so after about 10 billion years, give or take, he decided to abandon his lordship over hell. That's a long time, like a long time. During this time, Lucifer had manipulated the demons in hell so that they would go against each other. Like he would just stir shit up, spreading rumors. It was basically a reality show for demons down there. He's like, yo man, Hela told me you couldn't read, is that true? While swirling some wine. I dig it. So eventually he got bored of this and decided it was time to move on. He was getting tired of being treated the same all the time. Everyone thinks he's the guy that purchases and trades souls, which isn't exactly the case. His job description is just to punish whoever ends up down there. And he thought it was quite unfair that he had to rule there forever simply because he rebelled. Like, come on guys, it was one time, relax. So he handed the keys to hell over to two angels, Duma and Remiel, and retired to Earth. What a weird retirement. Yep, happy retirement. The subway never runs. You're gonna be late always. See ya. His powers, however, unmatchable. Because he's an archangel, he still retains some of those powers. Like for starters, he can manipulate any external force for any effect he desires. He can create flames with his hands and then travel realm to realm. What a hot high five he would give. He can go to hell, literally, go to hell, and then immediately go to the void, which is a space outside of creation itself. His only weakness, if you want to call it a weakness, is that he can't create something from nothing. Big deal. He even once cast a spell on a door, making it so that if that door was opened, it would unmake all of creation. Not bad. I mean, that's, for magic, not bad. I can do the thumb thing, so. What's up, Lucifer? Get at me, bro. Number 5, death. That's right, I said death. She's too powerful not to include. Being born with the universe, in a similar way eternity embodies life and growth, there has to be an equal and opposite, that being death, in which embodies decay and destruction. I like death a lot. The character. I don't walk around with Ouija boards on me. I'm not, not into that. Well, I mean, kind of. We'll talk. Making her first appearance in Captain Marvel issue 26, Death is actually really close with Thanos. I was really hoping to see more of this relationship in the MCU, but I mean, Cate Blanchett playing Hela kind of filled that void for me a bit. That was good fun, she's great. But Death, yes, they're different. Death was intrigued by Thanos from the start. She manifested herself to look like a young girl in his school when he was just a little wee Thanos. Little wee Thane Thanos. She convinced Thanos to kill a whole nest of critters after the same critters allegedly were the cause of a recent cave collapse, killing Thanos' friends. So yeah, she's kind of like the bad cop. There's another character that's in love with Death, and that character happens to be the merc with the mouth, Deadpool. I'll save that for another time. So what can this cosmic level entity do besides whisper bad ideas in your head? Well, every lost soul belongs to her, simply put. She cannot die, obviously, as she's not really alive to begin with. In fact, Thanos and Gamora are the only ones that can actually see death in her true form, except for when you're dying. Then you'll see her for sure. And you don't want to see her. Number 4, Perpetua. Arguably the most feared being in the greater Omniverse, making her debut in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 8, Perpetua created the multiverse, using negative crisis energies, also referred to as the 7 hidden forces of creation. So once it was created, she then made 3 sons to inhabit the multiverse, those being Mar-Novu, Alpheus, and Morbius. The multiverse consists of 3 main realms with different matter. So Mar-Novu got the positive matter realm, Alpheus got the dark matter realm, and Morbius the antimatter realm. Perpetua's role was already filled, being the creator, so now all she has to do was just make sure her children don't die. Infinite power, biofusion, molecular reconstruction, reality alterations, this chick has it all. She even once sent the Justice Society of America back in time. I would be crazy not to have her in this list. You gotta check out more of her. Number 3, Gaia. First appearing in Doctor Strange Volume 2, Issue 6, Gaia uses an unlimited amount of power drawn from the Earth. She's literally Mother Earth. So whenever you hear people say that, now you have a face to put along with it. So before any life on Earth was even created, Gaia is commonly referred to as the caretaker of evolution. She was actually the one who decided for the dinosaurs to become extinct. She's like, yeah, you with the long neck, get out of here. You're a bit too much. Stop eating my trees, plants. Stop eating my shit. Get out of here. Beat it. Thank you, Gaia. Thank you for all those terrifying giant spiders in Australia. Hey, if anyone watches this from Australia, go close your windows right now. I know you forgot to close one and you're gonna thank me later for it. No giant spiders today, sir. So, she can use all of the spiritual energy of every living being on Earth, seeing as she's part of the Earth's life essence. She of course can manipulate weather, so if you're acting like a dick, she can just hurricane your town up for a couple days until you cool off. Using the Allspeak, not the Allspark, don't even think about comparing them, she can speak in every language of the 9 realms. I barely passed grade 9 French, so I mean, it's pretty impressive. Number 2, Surtur. We caught a glimpse of what this guy can do back in Thor Ragnarok, released in 2017, but what else is he able to do? I mean, who is this guy? Originally the ruler of Muspelheim, and as we saw briefly, the destroyer of Asgard. In the comics, Surtur was destined to be part of Ragnarok, all along, using the Bifrost and the Twilight Sword. He's also the mortal enemy of Thor and his father Odin, who I'll get into a bit later on. So how strong is he though? Well, he possesses the power of 1,000 blazing suns. That's right, not just regular suns, blazing suns. What? He's 1,000 feet tall, give or take, and can even change sizes, so it doesn't even matter anyways. He of course has super strength, but here's the best part. Whenever he's reunited with the eternal flame, scratch that, whenever he's even close to the eternal flame's vicinity, his powers increase drastically. I mean, already this guy's fire powers are so strong, he could alter the Earth's temperature. Super hot fire, Surtur spits that. And finally, number 1, Odin. By Odin's beard! Okay, like I mentioned earlier, of course, Thor's father himself has to be in this list. Also, this list isn't in any particular order, so don't be giving me shit in the comics. I'm just throwing them out there. Odin might be my favorite god on this list, simply because Sir Anthony Hopkins plays him in the MCU. The former king of Asgard himself, Odin, protector of the 9 realms, adoptive father of Loki and father to Thor and Hela, the god of thunder and goddess of death. Even us on Earth consider him the god of wisdom. I mean, Anthony Hopkins. Kinda makes sense. Not gonna argue it. Making his debut in Journey into Mystery number 86, Odin defeated Surtur when he was just a young lad. So his brothers had been killed by the fire beast, and then they gave their powers right to Odin. So from the start, this dude was shredded. He took away Thor's powers 3 times. 3. You think after losing that hammer the second time, you'd be like, alright, fine, I won't start any fights, you win. I wish we saw more of Odin in the MCU. I mean, hopefully we get to see a de-aged version with Anthony Hopkins kicking ass in a prequel, or even a flashback. I would settle for a nice, juicy flashback in Thor Love and Thunder. They're so good at de-aging over there. Besides Peggy Carter, they nail it. CGI mouth, I don't know, didn't work for me.